The area surrounding Rocky Creek Dam was once within the original footprint of the Big Scrub rainforest landscape. The Big Scrub, located in northern New South Wales, was the largest expanse of subtropical rainforest in Australia, covering an area of 75,000 hectares. Clearing of the Big Scrub commenced in the 1840s, and by the end of the 19th century, 99% of the rainforest had been cleared for farming and settlements. At the time Rocky Creek Dam was built in 1953, as a water source for the region, the area was surrounded by dairy farming. Paddocks were clear except for a few camphor laurel trees, and rainforest species dotted across the landscape. After the dam was constructed and the cattle had been removed, the area became overgrown with weeds, including lantana and privet, with a few native trees beginning to return. Then in 1983, Ralph Woodford commenced his pioneering restoration work at the Rous Rainforest Reserve at Rocky Creek Dam, applying what would become known as the Woodford method to restore lowland subtropical rainforest in Big Scrub areas that had previously been cleared and used for dairy farming. Over 30 years later, the benefits of this work provide us all with inspiration and a vision of what can be.
When I started here, the reasons for starting here, and what this site actually looked like prior to me coming here, and starting work here. I started work here in 1983. It was when Hawkey was in, and I think it was Hawkey, or was it Hawkey? It was Hawkey, and he had the RED scheme, unemployment scheme. Yep. And I was a hippie living up here in the hills in a community, but I had this experience in landscape and restoration that I'd worked in Victoria before I came up here as a hippie. And I'd been a hippie for about 7 or 8 years, and I guess I was looking for something more than just being a hippie in my life. Yeah, I was wanting something more, and an ad came up in the paper for a RED scheme project, and that was one of Hawkey's things, to get the unemployed into employment. Yeah, and there was a 6-month employment scheme here at Rocky Creek Dam, and I was lucky enough to get the job of leading that team to do the initial work that is in this area here. When I came here, there was the jacaranda trees, and there were a few more big eucalypts like this one. There were about 5 trees down that way, and a couple of trees over here in these beds. But all of the rest of the trees have come since I started work here. And the interesting thing is that the majority of the trees that are here now, I didn't plant. Most of them came because birds dropped the seed here. The seed grew, and up came the forest from the bird droppings. So in those first years, we initially put circular beds in this area, and you can see most of these beds are in circles. They've expanded out over time to break that circular pattern, but the idea of circles was that you got most light into circles. You got areas of darkness on one side, so you could put your rainforest trees that we thought needed less light and more shade, and we could utilise that light shade spectrum. But as we found out, those trees that we planted quickly got overtaken from seedlings that just came up naturally once we disturbed the soil. So we learned a very good lesson early on, that as soon as you disturb the soil in most of our country here, there's a seed bank waiting to germinate. So through disturbance, you get germination of rainforest seeds, and you get a new forest coming up.
The methodology used at Rocky Creek Dam has evolved over time through an adaptive management process. Different techniques were trialled each year, and the positive responses were kept, while the negative responses were discarded. Ralph describes the methodology.
We worked out an annual methodology whereby we went through, did most of our hard work of poisoning camphor laurel, privet, lantana. We did that work in winter and early spring. Then early spring through to late summer, we reworked those areas, made sure that we kept the weeds down, particularly the annual weeds, so that the annual weeds didn't dominate the site, and produce a lot of seed to continue that cycle going on. And then in autumn, the lantana or the mulch, little layer had broken down. We had bare soil situations. The light could get into the bare soil, and when you've got warmth, moisture and light, you get germination. So we get massive germination in that autumn period. And on these sites with good basalt soils, you can get seedlings come up in March, and by May you've got a tree up to nearly 2 metres tall. So you can change a site from a weedy lantana privet site in winter, go through winter, spring, summer, and coming towards that next winter you should have almost a self-sustaining early successional forest there, and you can move on to your next site and start your next acre of land.
Ralph explains that resilience is the capacity of the site to reinstate previous ecosystem prior to its disturbance.
Oh yeah, like in a couple of years there shouldn't be much work to do at all, yeah? Especially out here. Rocky Creek Dam, its resilience quotient, it'd be 9 out of 10, yeah? Like it's high. The ability for rainforest to come back here is very, very high because Rocky Creek Dam's in a continuum with the natural forest system, yeah? So all the vectors that bring rainforest or spread rainforest are within a natural system here, and they're working happily. So we get all of those seeds in the seed bank. We get great seed bank response here, yeah? Whereas you go out to somewhere like Austinville, Wallingbar, where the land's been cleared for 100 years, and it keeps on being slashed every 6 months or every 3 months or whatever. The seed banks out there have gone, yeah? There aren't any seed banks in those grassy areas. You'll get new seed banks coming wherever you've got a perch. You've got the potential to grow a rainforest, yep? So even just a single tree, if you can keep the grass dead around the bottom of under any tree, you'll get some response in this North Coast area, yeah.
Subtropical rainforests go through a process of repair or regeneration after natural disturbances, known as succession. This process occurs in stages, and different rainforest species are important to each stage. Here Ralph explains the process of succession.
So rainforest grows in what we call sort of 3 stages. There's an early succession, which are fast-growing trees. They quickly grab a site, they flower and produce fruit very young in their life, and they produce masses of fruit. And they also have a lot of insect predators. So they're trees that produce a lot of leaves, a lot of fruit, a lot of flowers, and a lot of that ends up going back onto the ground. And so they're creating the environment for our second phase of rainforest trees to come in. They live so the early successional species, some of those will live 3 or 4 years, some will live up to 10, 15 years. Your secondaries will live to 20 or 30 years, and they're slower growing, but they need a bit more of it. They can't grow in open, full hard sites, full sun sites, right? So they need a bit more care, a bit more structure around them. And then you've got your mature phase species that come in later. They don't produce fruit very often. They're more happen chance to get onto the site. Yeah, and some of those things are just starting to come into these beds now. Yeah.
There are several principles of rainforest restoration to consider. The most important is to get to know the ecosystems you are trying to restore and fit in with its process and timing.
So we've just evolved that methodology over time and through observation. And observation is the key thing that I stress to everyone. It's through experience and watching and trial and error that you eventually put together a methodology that works. And it's a methodology that's open to change. It's open to the seasonal fluxes and flows of nature. So you need to be very open as a restorationist. You need to be able to change your methodology quickly if need be. You can't be stuck on rules and regulations. Yeah? The nature basically tells you where to do things and when to do things and what's the best time to do things.
Big scrub conservation and restoration protects water at the source and provides for water quality improvements through ecosystem processes. It is for all of these reasons that Rous Water is committed to the management of catchments to improve the quality of water flowing from the hillsides and into our streams. To learn more about how the rainforest was restored at Rocky Creek Dam using the Woodford method and how this can be done elsewhere in the region, visit the Rous Water website at www.rouswater.nsw.gov.au.